What's going on, everyone? It's the Pizza Buffet, Week 7 in the NFL, right here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, presented by Fanduel. I'm Rob Pizzola. I'm here with you for the next hour, breaking down all of today's games in the NFL. I see some of the usual suspects in the chat already. Morning Nolan, H-Train, Josh, Anthony Glenn. I promise we'll get into it really quickly here. Brandon Shoemaker, Free 88. I love you guys. Thanks for supporting the show and getting in the chat early. I'm watching the London game in the background here. Just full disclosure, this is not past posting or anything, but I have a pretty substantial size bet on the total in this game. So I might be a little bit distracted today, but I'm going to try to give you my full attention over the next hour, provided I don't see anything that pops off the screen in the second half here. As a reminder, before we get into it, smash that like button down below. Secondly, there's a share button down below. Do me a favor, click that share button, get this out on X, get it out Facebook, LinkedIn, your WhatsApp groups, wherever the hell you want to get it out. But let's try to get an all-time high audience this morning. Share out the content. Helps me continue doing this on a weekly basis. So that would be very much appreciated if you can get it out there to as much of an audience as possible. Once again, if you see news in real time, drop it in here. I'm going to be very focused on the game previews. My phone is off. It's away from me right now. I've shut down my other chat apps. So if you see breaking news, drop it in the chat. I will respond to it as I see it come up in the chat. I'm going to go through game by game, rotation number order. I will give props on games that I like, where I like the props. If I give out a prop, I won't attach a number to it simply because I want to keep the stream moving as quickly as possible. But if I do give out a prop, you can assume I like it across every number in the market. I'm only giving out props, which I would bet anywhere in the market. With that said, you should do your line shopping. Get yourself the best possible price. Once again, I'm going to repeat this every single week. I might change my picks from earlier in the week. Why is that? Well, it's game day. We have all the information we need now. When I do picks on Wednesday, I have to project out injury reports. I have to do a lot of things. And things change. It's a moving market. You get players who are into the lineup, out of the lineup. My numbers are going to be adjusted accordingly. When I give out bets on Wednesday, it's stuff that I bet. I can't really get out of it unless I wanted to pay vig and get on the other side. So you can trust me that I'm on those plays that I give out earlier in the week. But it's Sunday. You might see my numbers be a little bit different from earlier on in the week. Finally, I want to remind you, this is the worst time to be betting the NFL. I understand from a recreational point of view, it's easy to do it on Sunday morning. You get all the information. You might want to do it. I would encourage you, try to get your bets in earlier in the week and not make this like the source of the truth before we get into it. It's really tough to win betting NFL on Sunday mornings. The market-making sportsbooks right now are taking huge pops. They're very confident in their numbers. So if you're just going to blindly bet NFL sides and totals Sunday morning, it's going to be a real challenge. Ryan asks, what was the prop record last week? We lost last week. I don't have it offhand, but it was the first losing week on props on Pizza Buffet this year. I actually had a horrible prop week overall, but it was a losing week. I'll see all your questions in real time. I'll get to a bunch of them at the end of the stream, and I'll also do anytime touchdown scores at the end of the stream. Obviously, we had that one big week. I think that was a pure fluke. But I do see some value on some long shots today. So we will get into all of those. All right, let's get it moving here. Actually, let me set up my odds screen really quickly in real time. Bear with me here as I just want to make sure that I'm equipped to give you the best numbers possible or accurate numbers. And I've been playing around with a bunch of different stuff this morning. So, all right. Let's get into it. Atlanta and Seattle. First game on the list. Seattle's offense is down their right tackle, Stone Forsythe. He's been horrible this year, but they'll now be on a fourth-string right tackle because Abraham Lucas is on the PUP list. George Fant is on IR. On the Atlanta defense, their edge, Lorenzo Carter's out, but he's been brutal this year. Not a big deal. Keep an eye out for safety Justin Simmons. Looks like he's going to play. I do think the Seattle offense is going to have some success in this game. You see my total pretty high at 51.3. fully agree with where the market has bet this, up to the 51.5 range. I think that's a good number. Atlanta's pass rush is just a major issue right now. They're last in sacks. They only have 5 all year. Sacks per pressure rate, 8.2%, very low. Matthew Judon's their best pass rusher. He ranks 107th in pressure rate this year in the NFL. They just don't generate a pass rush. So yes, fourth string right tackle for the Seahawks. Are the Falcons going to be the team that's going to expose that? No. Not in my opinion. And when you look at Atlanta's defense this year, they've allowed teams to drive the field. TA pointed this out earlier this week, but Falcons opponents have reached the red zone on 40% of drives this year. That's the 4th highest rate in the NFL. You got Geno in the dome, controlled environment. I think Seattle moves the ball. Why the adjustment to my number since earlier in the week? So I talked about this earlier this week, but injuries in the Seattle secondary are a real problem. Atlanta's offense is at full health, minus Drew Dahlman, who's on IR at center. The Seahawks finally get that front 7 healthy on defense, except Uchenna Nwosu, he's on IR. But both starting corners, Reek Woolen and Trey Brown, are out. That's a real problem because Kirk Cousins can spread the field, gets the ball out quickly. It was looking up for Seattle. Ultimately, they lose both starting corners. I have to say, I think the market is kind of right now. I would still bet Seattle if I had to, and I'm stuck on a Seahawks position. It is what it is. I'm honestly surprised market didn't come in on Atlanta a little bit more. And Ian, you know it. Listen, I did love the Seahawks prior to the injuries, but now I'm kind of just stuck in no man's land for this one as well. I saw that yesterday, Kenneth Walker dealing with an illness. Obviously, you want Kenneth Walker to be at full health. Zach Charbonnet is he's not the guy. But I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know how ill he is. It's really hard for me to say. From a prop perspective, I like Bijan Robinson under on rushing yards in this game for 2 reasons. One, still getting pretty decent splits with Tyler Algier in the backfield. But on top of that, you now get the healthy front 7 for Seattle. I think Atlanta attacks through the air more in this game because it's the more optimal matchup for them. I think this number is a little bit too high. Should be priced in the upper 50s instead of the lower 60s. But that's the prop look I like in the game for today. Grinnell Wynn points out that it's Kenneth Walker's birthday. Yes. Illness. I mean, I don't want to suggest that he got tanked prior to an NFL game, but it's entirely possible. All right, next game up on the list. Titans and Bills. Keep it going rotation number order here. Big news yesterday would be Will Levis, not starting this game. AC joint injury. Tajay Spears is out as well for Tennessee. Hurts a little bit of their explosiveness. It's going to be the Tony Pollard show. Julius Chestnut is the backup, if you were wondering there. Buffalo's D's at full health, minus Von Miller, who is suspended here. Mason Rudolph versus Will Levis. Will Levis is the guy with the massive range, higher ceiling, much lower floor. Mason Rudolph is much towards the center, more towards the center. If I was backing the Titans on the spread, I would much rather have Mason Rudolph in there because he is less potent, less likely to turn it over in the game. If I was backing the Titans on the money line, I would probably want Will Levis's upside. But it's going to be tough for Tennessee to move the ball. Rudolph doesn't give you much downfield. That's the real issue. It's very vanilla, predictable offense. I think Tennessee probably tries to establish the run as much as possible with Tony Pollard. That might work. Honestly, the Bills' rush defense, not very good. They're dead last in yards per carry. They give up a lot of explosive runs. EPA-wise, they're not great either. So there's a path to success here. But Rudolph's just not giving you the downfield shots. So I don't know how big the ceiling is on this Tennessee offense. Other side of things, Amari Cooper is in. No idea on the workload. I expect it to be low. You have to monitor the status of L'Jarius Sneed for Tennessee. It looks like he's going to play, but Chidobe Awuzie is already on IR for them, so that would be an issue if he couldn't play. One thing that was really intriguing to me, for those who have watched my videos over the years or listened to me talk about the games, I look at a lot of scheme stuff in the NFL, how one team will play against the other. What do teams specifically like to run on offense and defense? Does that work to their advantage? I'm very matchup based. I don't just do like power ratings for both teams and then like take home field advantage and create that spread on a game. It's very matchup based for me. The Titans play a lot of quarters defense or cover 4. Nearly 25% of the time. That's a really high mark in the NFL. League average is like less than half of that. Josh Allen this year, EPA per play against cover 4, negative 0.86, worst mark in the entire league. It's not just bad turnovers either. It's a 32% success rate against that defense. Last year, he also had a negative EPA per play against this D and the lowest success rate against this type of D relative to any other defensive coverage. I say that because I don't love the Bills' ability to run the ball in this game. James Cook off of turf toe, don't know what that's going to look like, but I don't think it's going to be good. Tennessee's been very good at stopping the run. And on top of that, in a game where you have one team that's favored by a lot, the Bills don't run a lot of offensive plays. 56.5 offensive plays per game. That's the lowest in the league. They're very efficient with the ball. They score points. They're very good in the red zone. But when you are backing a favorite, you want the game, you want a team that plays fast to get as many possessions for the Bills as possible. So for all those reasons, my numbers leans heavily towards Tennessee in this game. Completely understand, by the way, if you don't want to bet these shit teams, I wouldn't blame you for that. But I think the market pushed up a little bit too far on Buffalo in this game. Sam Steiner says, I took Pollard's over. Bad lean? No, I honestly think I've played some Tony Pollard over rush attempts today. It's moved a little bit in market. But I do think backup quarterback, you're very likely to see Pollard be a huge bell cow workhorse today. Okay. Before we get into our next game, bet the NFL season on Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm going to talk about Fanduel a lot later in the stream, but I'm a huge fan of the product. They obviously sponsor our content, but it's a great product, tons of markets. And honestly, like just looking at a bunch of the bets I placed today, Fanduel has the best price in market for a ton of these. If you're betting anytime touchdown score markets and you're not shopping using Fanduel as well, I don't really know what you're doing. And right now, all customers get a profit boost every single NFL game day. That means you can pump up your gridiron winnings multiple times a week. Today, we got an anytime touchdown profit boost token. We got Sunday Night Football, same game parlay profit boost token as well. FanDuel has tons of ways you can get in on the action. You can bet money lines, spreads, player props, and more. Plus, with super simple live betting, lightning fast bet settlement, and instant withdrawals, FanDuel makes betting on the NFL easier than ever before. Visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download FanDuel today. You must be 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG, 888-789-7777 or ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Definitely use the responsible gaming hotlines that are available to you if you have any issues. If you're struggling from college football yesterday or whatever it may be, reach out to me on Twitter at Rob Pizzola. Use the numbers that I just posted or said as well. Sucks to have responsible gaming issues. I've been there before, so use the resources available to you. Okay, keep it going here. Third game on the board. It's the Browns and it's the Bengals. Usually the house of horrors for Joe Burrow is in Cleveland. I know a lot of, pros versus Joes, sharp versus square type of stuff on the Browns today versus the Bengals. I'm not betting the Browns unless you give me an egregious amount of points. They covered last week against the Eagles. They needed a block kick return for a touchdown in order to do that. You look at Cincinnati's offense, they're at full health. Cleveland, looks like Jordan Hicks will play full practice on Friday. Ronnie Hickman is out, but Juan Thornhill is in. So you kind of get like full offense against full defense here. The issue obviously has been the pressure for Burrow. He faced pressure against the Giants last week, struggled to move the ball. Last year against the Browns, and for the majority of his career, he's faced a lot of pressure. That could certainly happen again. Browns haven't been generating pressure at the rates of past seasons. Left tackle Orlando Brown has been really good this year. Pressure rate of just 3.1%, extremely low relative to years past. But there is a path to success here for the Cleveland defense, certainly. Absolutely. On the other side is where I really have the concern for the Browns. Nick Chubb expected to play. In what capacity? We don't know. Jerome Ford is out. The other backs there, Deontay Foreman and Pierre Strong. Ethan Posick, probably playing today. I haven't seen a final update on him, but this could be the healthiest O-line of the season for the Browns with just Wyatt Teller out. It's also a very healthy Cincinnati defense, aside from Dax Hill, who's on IR. So again, a game where not a bunch of injuries are going to factor into the equation here. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me right now who the Browns face. We could talk about all the Bengals defensive metrics this year. But the Browns, they can't score. People are like infatuated with the second half. Deshaun Watson played last week against the Eagles. He had 11 straight completions. Anyone watch these completions? Everything underneath. There's nothing downfield for this team. The guy cannot throw downfield. So I think, and I've talked about this earlier this week, I mean, if you like Cleveland, I would rather just bet the under in the game, because I don't really know what the path to success is here for Cleveland's offense against anyone. I mean, could Nick Chubb suddenly give them an offense? I don't know, maybe. But all these things, in my opinion, don't matter unless you have a quarterback. Look at the Panthers with Bryce Young, right? Upgraded the O-line in the offseason. They have a decent running game. Doesn't matter if the quarterback can't make throws. So I would only bet Cincy in the game. But if you're betting the Browns, I don't know. I just think that under gives you a double chance to win, because I don't see Cleveland scoring points. From a prop perspective, they're really simplifying this offense for Watson. He's been holding the ball way too long. They're trying to get it out of his hands quickly, running backs, quick screens. I like Deshaun Watson over on completions, especially when you look at the spread of the game and the likelihood that they're going to be trailing in the game. Okay. Still going along here. Oh, Cedric Tillman alts. I mean, listen, cat's out of the bag if I say this right now, but I'll be looking at Cedric Tillman in another capacity later on. I think all of you can know what that means. I don't know why I'm speaking in tongues right now. But yeah, Cedric Tillman, I think is live in some situations. Okay. Houston and Green Bay. I've talked about this game a lot this week. I originally was going to have some interest in Houston. It's going to be hard to do so now with the amount of injuries on defense. Green Bay is relatively healthy on offense. We don't know if Dontavian Wicks is playing yet, but Houston is just dealing with several injuries in the back seven. Aziz Al-Shair, Henry To'o, both out in the linebacking core. Starting corner, Kamari Lassiter is out. Starting safety, Jimmy Ward is out. His backup, Brandon Hill, is on IR. It really does set up nicely for Green Bay's offense to be able to move the ball on the Houston defense. Looking at the market right now, we're kind of at a flat 3. Total's been bet up to 48.5. Last week was the first time we saw like the real Jordan Love game, I'll call it. And you never know what you're going to get. He's a very inconsistent quarterback. I think of the like above average quarterbacks in the league, he has a wider range than a lot of the other ones. But he was great last week against Arizona. They had everything working for them. Granted, it's the Cardinals defense, but Houston defensively missing a lot of personnel. They do have a very good defensive-minded head coach in DeMeco Ryans. However, I still think Green Bay hit some splash plays in this game. And with the injuries in the linebacking core, I do think Green Bay also has success running the ball in this one. From a prop perspective, I like Emmanuel Wilson over on rushing yards. He's been getting more and more run the past few weeks. I think his number is still a little bit suppressed. And again, with the injuries in the Houston linebacking core, I like him anything over in the low 20s. On the other side of things, Laramie Tunsil, left tackle for Houston, survived his injury scare. So he's a good to go. Green Bay pretty healthy on the Jair Alexander is in. Devontae Wyatt is out on the defensive line. It was in the notes that were up on screen. I talk about it almost every week, but I feel like until they fix it, I have to talk about it every week. Houston's offense has so many self-inflicted wounds. They commit a ton of penalties. Laramie Tunsil has 11 accepted penalties this year. That's the most in the entire league. It's been a problem on offense all year. 32 offensive penalties this year, second last in the league. On top of that, they are very predictable in terms of whether they are going to run or pass the ball. Second and long, they're running the ball. And they force CJ Stroud to complete on third down. They have solid personnel overall, but it's a challenge. At some point, the Packers defense is going to come down to earth. I'm going to maintain that Green Bay's defense is well below average. They've generated 16 turnovers this year. That's the highest in the league by 2 turnovers. That's why their EPA is propped up right now. From a success rate standpoint, they're well below average. They're a team that's horrible on early downs, 31st in success rate on early downs. And eventually water finds its level. You keep allowing teams to pick up yardage on early downs, eventually they're going to get you on late downs. Tough game overall. Really would have liked Houston in this spot, but as the week went on, the injury report just did not work out kindly for them. But at some point or another, I will figure out a way to fade the Green Bay defense. Okay, next, Miami and Indianapolis. Interesting game. It's been one-way money on Miami this week. Honestly, not surprising. We talked about this, myself and Clive, last Sunday night when we looked at the openers, which were around 4.5. Seemed pretty likely that one of the teams was going to take money, and that was going to be the Miami Dolphins in this game. Miami's offense looking pretty good heading into this week. We got Devon Achane, full go. They have the speedsters on the fast track here in Indianapolis. It's a big one. Now, the question is whether they can get anything going coming off of the bye. Bad offenses tend to be bad offenses. In this case, I like the likelihood of Miami's offense being better than we saw pre-bye, just because their head coach is a very sound offensive mind and because they have weapons. Right? A lot of people talk themselves into Tennessee against Indy last week, and they're like, oh, the bye week is going to fix Will Levis and this offense. It did shit for them. I think you got to take it on a team-by-team basis. They have the ponies to play on the fast track. Indianapolis loses another edge rusher, EJ Speed, doubtful to play here. I think they get the running game going against a softer Colts front seven without DeForest Buckner. I like Devon Achane over on his rushing yards in this game against the Colts defense that I think leaves a lot to be desired. A lot to be desired. On the other side of the ball, Anthony Richardson is starting. There's a lot to parse for the Indianapolis offense. Jonathan Taylor remains out. So you'll get Trey Sermon, and you probably get more Tyler Goodson, who looked good last week. All three of Indy's top receivers are dealing with injuries. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, but all are going to play. Their center, Ryan Kelly, is good to go. Right tackle, Braden Smith, is hurt, but he's likely to play. And you do have some injuries on the Miami defense, although Javon Holland, Emmanuel Ogbah, David Long all traveled with the team. I don't think it's announced just yet. Holland, I believe, is doubtful to play and is not going to play, but there's a chance that he could be in there. Miami is getting pressure on the quarterback. They have a 42.9% pressure rate. Granted, they've played some quarterbacks that hold the ball a little bit too long. Their pressure has not translated into sacks, but they are forcing pressure. The big thing for me, and the biggest in arriving at this number, is I think Anthony Richardson is a downgrade from Joe Flacco. Contrary to what the Colts beat reporters want to say on Twitter. Flacco did not have a good game against Tennessee last week, but he's a little bit more consistent than Richardson. Richardson struggles with his accuracy. Success rates are very low. They're reliant on big plays. I agree with all the money on Miami. I'm not a Colts guy. I had to bet them last week because the market wasn't moving on the Flacco news for some reason or another. But surprised that they're going to Richardson. And well, I'm not surprised. From an organizational point of view, I guess it makes sense. You're using your high draft pick. But I think that's a downgrade in market. Would only bet, even though it's moved this way towards the Dolphins, I would still only bet the Dolphins in this game. Dontavian Wicks is active for Green Bay. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you putting that out there. Nothing for props in this game that I really like. Detroit and Minnesota. Detroit took some money this morning and then some buyback on Minnesota. This one's been back and forth all week. I don't blame anyone. It's very easy to make a case for either side in this game, in my opinion. I'll start with the Detroit offense because they're healthy for the most part. Their right guard, Kevin Zeitler, is questionable with a hip injury, but he's expected to play. Minnesota has some underrated, sneaky injuries here. Blake Cashman is out, solid inside linebacker. Harrison Phillips, their nose tackle. I would like to see, I haven't been able to find anything as to whether or not he is playing. That's a big one. They elevated a D lineman yesterday, but I think you might do that anyways against the Lions if the Lions are going to really run the ball. So I'm not sure, but Harrison Phillips is one I would want to keep an eye on and would affect my opinion slightly on the game as well. Normally you want to fade Goff against these like heavy blitz defenses. He saw Flores twice last year. He had two really good games against Minnesota. This season, he's been much better against the blitz. He's used Jamison Williams one-on-one a lot, which has been big for them. I do think the Lions are going to have some success moving the ball. However, I also think that their offense has basically caught every break that they could this year from a schedule point of view. When you look at how it's broken down for them this year, they played the Rams in week 1, who are dealing with a bunch of injuries. First game without Aaron Donald. They played the Bucs in week 2 without half their defense. Week 3 was the Cardinals, who are just a brutal defense. Week 4, they got the Seahawks with multiple injuries in the front 7. Week 6, Cowboys, multiple injuries in the front 7. They have caught every break this year. And this is finally a defense that should be a little bit more formidable. Will the Lions move the ball? I think they will. Will they move it at will like they have the last couple weeks against the Seahawks and Cowboys? I don't think that they will. And a great point here from Cottage. The defense for Minnesota was dealing with injuries last year as well. From a prop perspective, I like Sam Laporta under on receiving yards. He just has not yet gotten involved in the offense. He had one huge catch last week, which put him over his receiving yardage total, but he's not getting enough targets to justify this number, in my opinion, right now. Other side of the ball, and by the way, I do see you, Joey. I did say I like A-Chain under. I meant no additional props, is what I meant to say. And Pozic inactive, Cleveland center. Important to note as well, for those who thought the offensive line would be at full strength. Minnesota side, Aaron Jones expected to play, according to Schefter. He does have a hamstring injury. Who knows how viable he is today? Ty Chandler, Cam Akers are the backups there. Obviously, a huge loss on defense in Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions. I have heard some insane takes this week on what Aiden Hutchinson is worth, with, in my opinion, most people vastly underrating his value, which is surprising because normally in the NFL, you get an injury and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, like, how's this team going to compete without this player? The market, in my opinion, more often than not, based off my numbers, tends to overrate a lot of these injuries. This one in particular is enormous. Aiden Hutchinson had a 25% pressure rate. That was first in the league by a mile. If you go down the rest of the list of Lions pass rushers, it's an enormous drop-off. You only have one other player with a pressure rate above 10%. And this is a very good O-line for the Vikings, especially on the outside, especially at tackle. So I know the Jets rattled Sam Darnold in London a few weeks back, but I think he's going to have a game. Like, Justin Jefferson has gone off against the Lions. They do not have the corners to cover Jefferson and Addison. And this was games with like Nick Mullins as the quarterback for them. So ultimately what it comes down to, and my number, I trust Minnesota to score more on the Detroit defense. I do have a built-in home field for Minnesota that might be higher than some other teams, or an average home field. But all those things matter for me. L'Jarius Sneed, inactive. That's a tough one for them. That's a tough one. They still have a solid defense. And listen, at the end of the day, the Bills, not necessarily the team that's going to throw all over you, but down their top two corners, not ideal. Eagles and Giants, another game that I think has seen a lot of back and forth activity, opinions on both sides. I don't really have a strong opinion on the side. I did bet the total in this game. But as it stands right now, Philly's a flat 3 at Fanduel. Some of the market making books are shaded slightly towards Philly. Total in the game has come down, and like, it's out of range now. I want to say I did talk about it a bunch this week. So I'm not here just past posting. It came up on Wednesday Best Bets. A couple key injuries for Philly on offense. Obviously, Jordan Mailata, their left tackle, is on IR. Fred Johnson, who is undrafted, starts at left tackle. I think that's a substantial downgrade. Dallas Goedert is also out. I think he's one of the more underrated players, not just tight ends, but one of the more underrated players in the entire league. It looks as though Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns are both going to play, if we trust them at face value, that matters a lot. That's the strength of the defense. The Eagles open the season with the Packers defense, the Falcons defense, the Saints, and the Bucks. All four of those defenses are bottom 10 success rate in the league. They finally faced an above average defense with all of their weapons back in the lineup. Against Cleveland, they couldn't move the ball. The Giants' front seven is going to pose a problem, I think, for Philly, especially down their left tackle. Giants have played a very strong schedule of opposing offenses this year. They held Washington way under their season total, Seattle way under their season total, Cincy way under their season total, even Minnesota, a game where they gave up 28. I mean, in hindsight, doesn't look like a terrible performance. Yes, the Giants are weak at corner. Philly has good receivers. You got to trust Hurts to make the right reads. And candidly, I lose more and more faith in Jalen Hurts with each passing week. Other side of the ball, big break for New York. Obviously, they get Malik Neighbors back off a concussion, but they do lose their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, for the season. It's really hard to isolate Andrew Thomas's value alone because most of the time in the past where he's missed time, it's been other O-linemen missing time as well. But suffice to say, it's a pretty substantial loss for the Giants, considering Daniel Jones doesn't handle pressure well, and he's a solid left tackle. The thing with the Giants and why my numbers often lean to the under in their game, played it last week against the Bengals, talked about it last week against the Bengals, but they don't really have a downfield threat right now because Daniel Jones can't make those throws. They're also very methodical. Brian Daboll is doing this stuff where, you know, they have 2nd and 8. They run a 4 or 5 yard quick pass, something underneath to set up a 3rd and manageable. They're basically running Daniel Jones as a game manager right now. We've seen it a ton this year. Their offense was better than it looked last week against the Bengals. They just couldn't score in the red zone. But ultimately, that's going to be a problem for them going forward for the most part anyways. So I'm on the under here. I think it's got bet into place. But we are where we are now. Okay, Joey Toons released Green Bay -3, Cleveland 5.5. I saw a few other things. Jameis inactive. Yeah, like if you ever think that Jameis is going to be a guy that comes in and saves the day for them, they're not doing that. It's just a disaster for them overall. Okay. I believe we're into the late window now. Rams home game, got to be late window, right? Yeah. Only 3 late games today. One of them is this. Oof. Big oof. I talked about this last week. I really struggle in games from a modeling perspective. I don't necessarily want to say that I struggle, but it's much more challenging to model games that are we're dealing with a number of injuries to one team, and especially skill position players. Las Vegas's offense is in shambles. They traded away Devontae Adams. They're going to be without Jacoby Myers again. This wide receiving core of Trey Tucker, DJ Turner, Tyreek McAllister, it ain't it. Their right guard, Dylan Parham, is out. This is the healthiest the Rams D has been all season. I don't think it's a very good defense, but are the Raiders going to be the team that exposes them without these weapons? I tend to lean towards the Rams defense having the matchup advantage as bad as they've been this year because the Raiders are going to run out Aiden O'Connell. There's no downfield threat. Everything underneath. It's just a very flaccid offense. On the other side, I believe the Rams are playing Thursday night football. They are. Rams are playing Thursday night football at home to the Vikings. And Cooper Kupp's not going to play today, at least not for sure. Adam Schefter says unlikely. Jordan Whittington dealing with an injury as well. And those matter. They're down skill position players as well. But the Raiders are dealing with some injuries in their defensive front seven. Christian Wilkins is on IR. Their other starting defensive tackles, John Jenkins and Adam Butler, are both questionable. We don't know if they're going to play today. Tommy Eichenberg, outside linebacker, is out as well. So you got to trust the Rams offense a lot more to move the ball when you're dealing with these injuries. Overall, it's a really tough game to handicap because there's a lot of moving parts. I completely understand why the market is just like one-way action on the Rams all week. The Raiders are kind of viewed as a dead team. I totally get it. We're seeing a market-making book circa bet down to 42.5 in this game total-wise. It's a real struggle. And I also just struggle with the coaching in this game. Antonio Pierce against Sean McVay. Oof. Another oof. Keep it moving here. Carolina and Washington. Speaking of dead teams, can kind of put Carolina in that boat. One-way action towards Washington. We're pretty much at 9.5 everywhere, even some 10s out there at this point. I gave out the over in this game as my best bet on Wednesday best bets. It's one of those weird games where I am almost certain and knew that I was not going to get closing line value in the game because of the total being priced in the 50s and the appetite of one group to bet the under on these high totals. I don't really care. I really like the over. For Washington, Brian Robinson's going to play. Carolina's defense is the thinnest. Like we're in week 7. It's insane to look at this defense in week 7. It's got to be one of the worst at this point of the season that I've ever seen. Jadeveon Clowney's out again, as are Josie Jewell. A'Shawn Robinson is hurt on the defensive line. LeBrian Ray, the other starting defensive end, is also in danger. It's a complete mess. Complete mess. And all the Panthers do is sit in cover 3 on defense. Jaden Daniels has the second highest EPA in the league against cover 3, 57% success rate. They blitz a lot. They can't get pressure even when blitzing. And if there's concerns about the game pace, Washington plays no huddle over 50% of their snaps. They go to the line, they move the ball. I really do not understand how this total's being held up where it is. I really don't. I'm back on air tonight on Forward Progress. I might look like a complete idiot for saying that. But Washington, I think, is going to score a lot. Carolina, their right tackle, Taylor Moton, remains out another week. Deontay Johnson is in. He's dealing with multiple injuries, so you got to be careful there because he's dealing with a rib injury and a hamstring injury. But the Washington defensive front, Jonathan Allen is on IR. Dorrance Armstrong, who they brought in from the Cowboys, is out. Cleveland Farrell might not play. Washington is down significant players on the defensive line. Is Carolina going to be the team that puts up a 40 burger? I don't think so. But they play fast. 5th fastest team in tempo. They play especially fast when they're trailing under Andy Dalton. Throw the Bryce Young stuff out of the window because he doesn't really know how to play fast. And it's a defense that they can move the ball on as well. Ultimately, we're going to be reliant on these teams to score when they're in the red zone, but I don't think that there's a ton of resistance. I like the over in this game. Spread-wise, I think maybe we've gotten to a point now where, okay, it's a little bit too much, but I don't want Carolina. I'm done with it. I'm done with the Panthers, Browns experiences. I have better things to do with my life. I mean, if you're giving me an amazing price, sure. I would not consider this to be an amazing price. Game of the day, KC San Fran. Super Bowl rematch. Market has kind of settled in at 1.5, 2 here in this game with San Fran at home. I disagree with that number. I think it's closer to a pick 'em, but if you're getting 1.5 and you make the game a pick, it's not like it's the biggest edge in the world. Juju Smith-Schuster hurt his hamstring this week in practice. He's going to play. Charvarius Ward's going to play for San Fran on the back end. It's basically, minus Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco, who are on IR. You got the rest of the crews are healthy. Same with San Fran, obviously missing some defensive players on IR, but nobody that's got an injury designation this week that's going to miss the game. The 49ers offense isn't all that great right now. KC offense, you can talk about the lack of explosiveness, but they just find consistent ways to score and move the ball against teams. A prop look I like in this game, especially considering the spread and the likelihood that it'll be a close game, is Patty Mahomes over on passing yards. I think it's a little bit too low. But if we're just looking at KC in a vacuum and the history of Patrick Mahomes, it's very similar to me to the history of Tom Brady. For years, I bet against Tom Brady. Market will move against Tom Brady. Happen regularly. There's something that we don't capture with the elite quarterbacks and their ability to just find ways to win close games. This came to me courtesy of Dinger earlier this week, who broke it down for me. Patrick Mahomes, 28 games in his career where he's been an underdog or a favorite of 2.5 or less. If you take the expected winning percentage of the Chiefs in those games, it's 48%. But he's actually won at a 71.5% clip. They just find a way, just like they did in the Super Bowl. And in a game that's lined like this, I would rather the Chiefs than the 49ers, who find ways to lose big games. 49ers still without Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, Super Bowl rematch, and he was the guy that dominated them in the Super Bowl. Jordan Mason's going to play, which is important for them. But Brock Purdy has been escaping pressure all year long. He's one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the league. He has the 5th highest pressure rate in the league this year at almost 40%. He creates for himself, but this Chiefs defense is going to get pressure. They're going to get after him. 2 other things, because I consume a lot of other content and I hear things. Super Bowl revenge, right? People talk about revenge like it's a thing. I've done a lot of work into revenge angles. It's very challenging to define what a revenge angle is. Certainly this is one. San Fran lost in the Super Bowl to Kansas City. However, there is nothing that I've ever researched into, and I've done an exhaustive amount of analysis on this, that lends itself to the revenge angle being a thing. People just throw it out like it's a thing. Next thing, public versus sharps, right? While public's betting KC, line's kind of going the other way. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to tell you people that this stuff doesn't matter, right? Because now, the sports book is getting San Fran at plus 110 as the Patriots get in the end zone. Sports books are getting at plus 110. You're paying minus 110. It's not apples to apples. Enough of this. We're just coming off a week last week where like every public side cleaned up. So there's like this conspiracy of like, oh, the public won all their money back. They're going to lose it back today. I don't know. Just evaluate the games. Just evaluate the games. Final game, Sunday Night Football. Jets and Steelers. Jets, Devontae Adams in the lineup for this one. Healthy O-line for them as well. Pittsburgh is going to get a reinforcement. Alex Highsmith is back. That is big for them. It gives the Steelers another viable pass rusher. There is reason to believe that the Steelers D can have success in this matchup. With Highsmith back, that matters. They play a lot of cover 3, 55%, third highest rate in the league. Aaron Rodgers against cover 3 this season, 31% success rate. Really struggled to move the ball. That offsets some of the impact of Devontae Adams. However, I just don't see the Steelers offense moving the ball. The Jets took money this morning, game day money, fully agree with it. You can tell me, Steelers as a dog, the voodoo stuff, I get it. But I don't know where they're going to score. Their center, Zach Frazier's out. The right guard, James Daniels, remains on IR. They're very thin in the center. The Jets can generate pressure up the middle. Yes, the Jets are going to be without Michael Carter, maybe DJ Reed as well. The Steelers are one of the few teams in the league that just can't exploit that. Because they have George Pickens, who's going to get a lot of Sauce Gardner. And then they have Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin and Scotty Miller. They just don't have the horses. And Russell Wilson sucks. I don't know why this happens every year with Russell Wilson. Where's this career resurgence going to come from? He's a check down artist now. He can't throw downfield. He tries to protect the ball. Sean Payton could do nothing with him last year. I don't really get it. The Steelers' O-line is bad. They've given up the highest and the third highest single game pressure rate this season. Once against the Raiders, once against the Broncos. Jets will do that to them again tonight. I don't really see the path to success. I'm really surprised, honestly, a little bit surprised that we saw so much money bet towards the over. We're up to 39 and a half now. I do strongly lean the under, but that's where we're at. Prop look, George Pickens under. I know he's the only viable option. He's going to get sauce a lot. I don't think downfield shots are there for this Steelers offense with Russ. He just doesn't throw the deep ball well anymore. That's where I'm looking. George Pickett under in the mid 50s. Okay. Saw a bunch of stuff along the way. Higgins anytime touchdown is the bet of the day, says Nolan. I don't like. I honestly, I've talked about the anytime touchdown market a lot. The guys at the top, you rarely are going to get good prices or find value in them, in my opinion. That's not to say they can't win. Derrick Henry scores every week. You pay a premium, whatever. But I think a lot of those, I'd have to disagree on that. Chuba overs. Love Chuba in any game where they're, in any game, really. I can't remember what they were calling him last week on the broadcast. Canadian Express or something like that. Don't mind that. Same thing with Romeo Dobbs here. Plus 280. Good price. Fanduel. I would never blame you for betting best price in market. But, yeah. Ricky Pearsall. I don't know how much he's going to be involved today. I'm actually targeting Conley more than Pearsall. Let's actually get into that really quickly. Anytime touchdowns. So I actually like 5 today. I'm going to go 3 receivers, 2 tight ends. A reminder, I look for longer shots because generally that's where I think the value is. Josh points out ETR like Pearsall unders. Okay. A lot of these are going to lose. I'm honestly just hoping to win one of these today. And that would kind of be break even. 2 would be great. But bet responsibly with these. That week we had, like I said, where they all hit, that was just a fluke. That was a fluke. Okay, let's start with the one let's start with Carolina. I'm going to go with Jalen Coker, anytime touchdown. Coker is like the third receiver for the Carolina Panthers. You got to get at least 5-1. I'll tell you the minimum prices you got to get. But with Deontay Johnson nursing multiple injuries, there's a decent chance he does not play the majority of the game. Coker is kind of elevated above Jonathan Mingo now as well in that offense. And I think you see a lot of him on the field in trailing game state late in the game. So Jalen Coker for Carolina. Talked about this one earlier. Can't remember who mentioned it in the chat. Cedric Tillman at wide receiver for the Browns. It's kind of ugly because I'm not sure the Browns can score much. I've priced that into the model though. And Cedric Tillman is the guy to me that's getting more run. He's at 8-1 on Fanduel. You need plus 650 or better on Cedric Tillman. I think he's the biggest beneficiary of the Amari Cooper trade. Elijah Moore is just not it for me, as you guys know from watching the stream this year. 49ers. Instead of Ricky Pearsall, I'm going Chris Conley. Chris Conley is 14-1. You need plus 950 or better to play Chris Conley. But I'm going to take a chance. I'm making a bet, but I'm kind of taking a chance with Jawan Jennings out that Conley is the bigger beneficiary of those than Ricky Pearsall is. I don't know how much Pearsall is going to figure into the lineup. I'm taking a chance on Conley. He's been there for a while. On the tight end side, Jonnu Smith for the Dolphins, in my opinion, is very underpriced today. They've talked ad nauseum in the bye week about getting him more involved in the offense. You can find him at 7-1 Fanduel. You need 5-1 to play him. To me, this is the best of the ones that I'm giving out. Jonnu Smith. I really like that one a lot with the amount of involvement they're talking about with him. And finally, we'll go to the New York Giants and Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson has not scored this year. He's getting targeted more and more. Malik Neighbors draws way more attention when he's in the lineup to him. Leaves other positions open on the field. Without the left tackle, I think you might see some tight end looks over the middle of the field, Theo Johnson. So those are the 5 today. Coker, Tillman, Conley, Jonnu, Theo Johnson. It's disgusting, but that's it. I'm being asked about Rashad Bateman. I didn't price Monday yet from a props perspective. So can't tell you that. Can't tell when this parlay hits. It's going to be at. What was the 5-gamer, Jason? If we have it up on screen, I didn't see the exact price. Oh my God. 5 to win 226K. I'm not playing that. Although I feel like I almost should now that it's been brought up in the chat. CMR asks, if you have the no sweat, that's true. That's true. CMR asks if I got Green Bay -12 money line, worth buying Houston +3. My opinion is you got a great position. Just hold it. I mean, if you think there's value in Houston +3, sure. Look for the middle. Hope for Green Bay wins by 1 or 2. You could also arb out. That's a possibility as well. What's the best number on Houston in market right now? Money line. You got like a +1, few +150s out there, 152. But I would just say hold the position, personally. All right. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. One favor, smash that like button down below. Jim H, no problem. I'll do this every week throughout the rest of the season. My one ask of you, spread the word. If you enjoy the content here, let your buddies know. Let other people know on your social accounts. We want to try to grow the following as much as possible. By season's end, I'd love to have double the people watching the pizza buffet in the morning. I know there's a lot of content out there, but that would be very much appreciated. So smash the like, subscribe here. Good luck to all of you out there today. Reminder, I am back here tonight, live, 8 p.m. Eastern time for Sunday Night Football. Me and Clive Bixby, through the entire first half, are going to look at the opening numbers at FanDuel for next week. And we'll give our early thoughts. Candidly, we did pretty damn good at predicting where the market was going to go on a lot of these games this week. So that's worth tuning in for, if you can. 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. All right, everyone. That's it for me. Appreciate you tuning in. Enjoy the day. Bet responsibly. Good luck with your bets. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for my producer, Jason Cooper, this has been the Pizza Buffet Week 7 in the NFL presented by Fanduel. Peace out, everyone.